Uh, Going good.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another installment of Dallas Housing Coalition's webinar series, Housing for All, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. I'm your host, Andrea Gillespie. I also sit on the board of Dallas Housing Coalition and serve as Senior Manager of Community Development at Charles Schwab Bank. After taking last week off, we are back with another impactful discussion about what it takes to keep Dallas affordable. Joining us this morning is Evan Beattie, Chairman and CEO of GFF, an award-winning multidisciplinary design firm with offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin. Evan joined GFF as an architect in 2005 and was named to his current role as Chairman and CEO in 2020. Evan is passionate about sustainable design, density, smart growth, and community engagement. In fact, these passions enable Evan to contribute to zoning change efforts in meaningful ways, while also raising the visibility of walkable urban design and quality placemaking. Thank you for joining me today, Evan.
It's great to be here, Andrea. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. We've got a lot to cover, and I just want to go ahead and jump right in with you and just ask you. I mentioned in the top of the episode that you come from the architecture field, and I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit of your perspective as an architect by training. What is the current state of affordable housing in Dallas?
Well, we recognize that there's an acute need for more affordable housing in our city and in the communities in North Texas in general. Our employees that are graduating college and coming to work for us are struggling to find housing that they can afford in the places they want to live. And the amount of escalation we've seen in housing costs in Dallas in the last 3 or 4 years is really incredible. So we clearly have a lack of supply, and we're becoming an increasingly attractive place for people to live. And something that's made Dallas and North Texas very attractive as a place to live has been relatively affordable housing. And as we lose that competitive edge and lose that ability to have attainable housing and the quality of life that can enable, it jeopardizes the potential future of our city. So it's an acute issue that we're talking about a lot at GFF, and it's on the top of everybody's minds in our industry.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you brought me back to when I first moved to Dallas back in 2011 from Chicago. And two of the things that piqued my interest about moving here was, one, no more horrendous winters. And two, the cost of housing, because back then, you were speaking of Dallas's competitive edge. That was one of them, was affordable rents, affordable housing prices, and things of that nature. But it sounds like from what you're saying, the tide is turning, and that's no longer something that Dallas can use as a selling point for moving here.
We definitely compare favorably to California, New York. Chicago, I think, has become more competitive as they've shrunk. They probably don't have the same shortage of supply, and housing costs really are a supply and demand constrained market. If there's too much housing supply, the costs are going to come down. If there's not enough, they're going to go up. And with all the job growth and population growth we've seen in our region, it's been challenging to keep up with it from a supply perspective.
That's great. So let's talk about other cities for a second. We know that most major U.S. cities are grappling with the issue of affordable housing. Are there innovative solutions that you have seen another city in the country embrace that could have some applicability in Dallas?
A lot of people are talking about small Minneapolis area where they've really relaxed zoning rules, gotten rid of single family zoning to increase housing supply.
You said Minneapolis, right?
I think it's Minneapolis.
Yeah. Okay. It cut out for a second, so to make sure we got that.
Yeah. I kind of think about them as the same general area, but that's a regulatory change that can happen that can really cause the market to be able to meet demand more readily. As we think about Houston, Houston tends to be a really boom and bust town. Some of that's because their economy is so linked to oil and gas. But in the real estate market there, they also tend to boom and bust a lot because they don't have zoning in Houston. That supply and demand constraint isn't there from a policy. They have deed restrictions that will sometimes limit what you can do on certain properties, but it's not unusual in Houston, for example, to see a high rise going up, pretty close to a single family neighborhood, and sometimes even right next door to a single family home, if it's an appealing part of town. And in Dallas, we have a very detailed zoning overlay that restricts what you can do where, that is a governor on supply. And I am not somebody who would advocate for throwing away our zoning code in Dallas because I think it's done a lot of really good things. We've got great, strong neighborhoods. We've got some emerging, really strong, walkable, mixed use and commercial districts. But the monotony encouraged as much walkability and as many quality urban places as I think our population could support. And so there are a lot of conversations going on right now about how can we look at land use policy and allow accessory dwelling units by right in places. How can we is a single family district as a whole, a blanket, have so much of our land as a city be limited to single family, the right thing to do? And I know for a lot of neighborhood associations, they really like the comfort and assurance of adjacency and low intensity of use that comes with single family zoning. But there are places in Dallas where we have the capacity to have a lot more people and families living if we could have a garage apartment, if you could allow a duplex. And I hear a lot of people. This is maybe not that well-known stat, but if I was to ask you, what do you think the most dense city town in our region is from a people per square mile? If I ask you that question, what would you answer? What do you think the most dense city town in our region is?
Oh wow! So in DFW,
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like it's in northern Dallas. I feel like it's the Plano area.
Maybe like an Addison or Plano area. Yeah, it's actually.
Oh, is it? I live in
Yeah.
Plano, so
Okay,
it's
no,
not. Okay.
it's not. The most dense is University Park.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
University Park has tons of duplexes, has tons of, there's a decent amount of multi-unit condo buildings, and
You're
it's
right.
almost all residential. There's not a large amount of land area given over to commercial uses. And so, a lot of people in the city of Dallas, as we think about saying, hey, we're going to move away from single family housing, that, well, I don't want all those duplexes in my neighborhood. Well, have you driven around University Park? It
It's
can be
very
done in a
true.
very nice way that allows us to meet the demand we have and keep housing affordable. And so I hope that over time this conversation about aligning land use policy with the need to be able to hold more population, we can start calibrating those better and getting people more comfortable with what density can look like and feel like, because density is not always a bad thing. And oftentimes what comes with density is more great restaurants that you can walk to and more higher quality of life.
Yeah. That's great. So it sounds like from what you're saying is that you are seeing cities that are a bit more flexible with their zoning, being able to get a better handle on creating more of a variety of housing options.
Yes, I think that having that idea that zoning shouldn't be sacred. Zoning is something that is an important tool for us to have, but there are times when we should be open to changing it, is an important concept for us to be open to. And a lot of what I do at GFF is looking at zoning that was written 40, 50 years ago and set the rules of the game for a certain district, neighborhood, area, and saying a lot has changed in the last 40 or 50 years. And for us to make it viable, for us to put a really quality project on the site, we need to change some rules. And for us to change those rules, There's a 1 year to 2 year, sometimes even 3 year long community outreach process that's quite expensive and risky to be able to change the rules to be able to build what is what we think is highest and best use for the land currently. And through that community input and that process, projects are oftentimes made better, but it also prevents us from being able to meet supply needs in the near term. It creates really long lead times to being able to deliver supply. And one of the things I think that California has really been hurt by is how long it takes to build new supply there. They have so many regulatory requirements that cause, if you want to build apartments, it's going to take us about 10 years until you can break ground. You got to, jump through this hoop and do that and do that. That doesn't work for a lot of people. If a mom and pop developer can't afford to carry land, carry a project for that long, and it makes it so the barriers to entry are so high that only the largest institutional people can help meet the housing supply. And if we can create low barriers to entry with rules that are carefully contemplated, I think we could create a lot more supply quicker, and it would create opportunities for people that live in the neighborhoods to be the ones that are keep creating some of that supply, as opposed to it all being created by large publicly traded institutions or private equity.
Wow, that is such good information. One, I feel you gave all the viewers today a great question they can ask at their next cocktail party. What is the densest city in DFW? Let's all remember it's University Park, because I think that's a great example of some of the issues we're talking today. But you also touched on land use, and I want to come back to that for a second. First, I want to talk about this is a little bit of audible, but I think it'll be helpful for our viewers to have a better understanding. Land use and zoning are the same but different. Would you agree with that? Or what would be the differences between zoning and land use? And how does land use contribute or inhibit the production of affordable housing?
Sure. Yeah, thinking about, the differences between land use and zoning. When I think of land use, I think of the action that's happening on the land. Is the land being used as housing? Is it being used as office? Is it being used for a nail salon or a tattoo parlor or grocery store? Those, to me, that's the use. And zoning, the zoning rules regulate the use that can be allowed on a land as well as the form. And so both of those are at play in a single family community. All that can typically be built is a single family home, a church, because you can build a church anywhere. And very recently, Dallas has looked at allowing daycare uses by right in single family zoning because we have an acute shortage of daycare in our region. So, single family is a monotype of use. And then you go into other districts. In Dallas, there are a lot of properties that are zoned CR, for instance, and CR is commercial retail, and you can do office and you can do retail uses in that district, but they don't allow apartments in that district by right because when the zoning rules were written, who would want to live above a restaurant? That's crazy. Like that was the thinking 40 or 50 years ago. Nobody would ever want to live above a restaurant. Now, everybody wants a restaurant at the ground floor of their building. They want to be able to walk to things and not have to rely on a car.
Coffee shop next door, yeah.
Yeah. A coffee shop in the ground floor of your building is the dream. So, we've, I think, increasingly become more accepting of mixed use over time, and a lot of people would credit, Seinfeld and Friends as New York City-based shows that were really popularized urban living and the quality of life you can have in a dense urban city. And I still, believe there is a place for, single family homes. And I really believe in neighborhood self-determination. And I think that there are tools that in the city of Dallas we could create that allow neighborhoods, even if we say, hey, there's no more single family zoning, you can build an accessory dwelling unit anywhere. If the vast majority of people within a specific neighborhood said, that's just not for us, and they were able to achieve a certain percentage of people that say we don't want to allow that here, there are all kinds of tools that can be put in place to say in this neighborhood, even though the zoning would allow it, we have this other layer of requirements that don't allow it to happen.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because that is the, as you were describing it, that's the exact thought I have in my mind. It's almost like an obstacle course where the first set of obstacles is just like understanding and working within how the land is zoned.
Mhm.
And then once you understand how the land is then you have to think about, does what I want to put in here
Mhm.
align with how the place is zoned? So
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into development, it sounds like.
Yeah, there really is. No, an analogy to, I think, that idea of what comes first, allowing accessory dwelling units or not.
Mhm.
Right now, what comes first is not allowing them. And in our company, we used to not say, oh, when you join us, you're automatically going to join our 401k at a certain level, contribute to our 401k at a certain level, unless you intentionally opt out. And as soon as you make that change, people do a much better job of saving for their retirement. They don't opt out. But if you make them opt in, a lot of people don't make that choice that, oh, I'm going to start saving for my retirement. And I think there's a similar analogy there to the idea of the accessory dwelling units, where right now the default is to say no. A lot of sense to make the default they are allowed, but you can opt out. There's a
Mhm.
mechanism to opt out of allowing it, and that would go a long way towards helping us meet the housing need that we have.
Great, great. And shifting gears a little bit, I'm sensing from you in our conversation that there's a role for architecture and design firms like GFF to play when it comes to supporting affordable housing initiatives. What might that role be like for a firm like GFF that's focused on design and architecture?
Well, we really are passionate about attainable housing and affordable housing, and want to see housing costs in our region remain well calibrated to where incomes are. It's just such a quality of life issue. We've designed several projects that have pursued funding through the PFC, Public Facility Corporation process. And I like those projects when they're new developments that are using that mechanism, because there really is no difference between the very nice luxury apartments units within a PFC project and the ones that are affordable. And I think that blending of very high quality luxury housing and affordable housing is a really good model. In
Mhm.
Texas, we're lucky that we generally have pretty low construction costs when we're building with wood frame construction, which is
Mhm.
most of what the apartments we see in our region built with wood frame construction. And that can be anything from a 2 or 3 story walk-up apartment building to a 7 story podium style building where you have concrete at the bottom and 5 stories of wood on top. And the PFC structure there, I think, is a really important tool in our region to help us get more supply on the ground. We're glad that that's there. We're doing a lot of projects right now that are very urban infill, high density projects that have a very high cost of construction. And for those projects, it's not economically feasible at times to put affordable units in the building. But the city of Dallas has come up with a fee in lieu structure where developers, where it doesn't make economic sense to put affordable units in the building, can pay a fee in lieu. And I'm really excited to see what that money that's being paid to the city of Dallas in fee in lieu will be able to create related to affordable housing, when ideally we turn those fees into equity in new ground up
Mhm.
projects where the return on equity can be exponential in the units that can be created. I think there's a very exciting opportunity for us in Dallas to create high quality, long-term affordable product that will help generations to come through this fee and lieu structure we have now.
That's wonderful. And is that fee and lieu structure, is that new or has that have been around for a while?
It's relatively new, and it's been through several iterations. I think the city of Dallas initially passed it in 2017 or 2018, so it's 5 or 6 years old from a policy perspective, and it's already been changed once how it works through that process. Now in the city of Dallas, if you're going through a zoning change and you're asking for an increase in allowed density for a multifamily project, you'll either have to provide affordable units in your project or pay a fee in lieu. And we'd love to see a lot of projects provide the housing in their building rather than providing the fee in lieu. But there is that opportunity, if a fee is paid, if the city manages it well and uses it to be equity in new affordable housing projects, that the return on that fee could be exponential.
Mhm. Wow, that's great. For a lot of our viewers may or may not know that that is something that exists. And I'm thinking that there are probably other cities in the country that do that as well. It sounds like a great mechanism to create more options that we have, or tools that we have out there.
Yeah.
And I love how you talked about, from your firm's perspective, about, it sounds like to me that a firm like GFF, if you're given this task of, okay, we want this vision that combines retail with housing and affordable options and walkability and things like that. Like, you would be equipped to help bring that to life in a way that then someone can take it and execute it, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, oftentimes our clients will come to us with a piece of land and
Mhm.
an idea of what they want to put on it, but not a great understanding of how they'll need to configure the parking on it to meet both code requirements and demand, and how much restaurant can we really get on the ground floor, and how many units can we fit on the site. And so a big part of what we do is working with people who have a property, have a glimmer of an idea, and help them take that idea and make it a reality. It's a lot of fun to get to, put pen to paper and talk about different concepts, and try to identify the building form that fits the best in the neighborhood where it's located, and have that actually turn into a building that, we hope will be here longer than I'll be
Yeah.
here. We want to do, long lasting quality design and construction that will make communities better for a long time. And we talk a lot about at GFF the importance when it comes to housing, thinking about the people that will live in this building for the next 50 or 100 years. During the time they live in the building we've designed, will they feel like that changed the trajectory of their life in a good way? Will they
Mhm.
look back on that 3, 5, 10 years they lived in the building we designed and say, wow, that was a really great experience, and I'm better off for having been here. And we've done enough housing in Dallas now that I'll frequently find when I go to get my hair cut, I'll ask the person who's cutting my hair where they live, and they'll say, "Oh, I live in an apartment off of Fitzhugh," and I'll say, "Oh, which one?" And, "Oh, I live at B&F Flats." "Oh, we did that. Do you like living there?" And you kind of, "Oh, I hope the answer is yes." Yeah, and
How much
uh,
time do you spend in that common area?
yeah. What's your favorite amenity? But yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
it is you realize how important it is when a building that you worked on 5 or 10 years ago, somebody that you just met lives in it, and you really want them to love it. And we're making very long-term decisions when we're designing housing, and it's going to impact people's lives over a very long period of time.
That's great. And kind of, you touched on something else in a previous question, that's cost. And I know if anyone who's watching with one foot in the development work right now knows that even though our market hasn't been hit as hard by construction costs, other places have. And then there's other costs that have escalating, like insurance and things of that nature. So I'm just wondering, from what you see with developers and policymakers working together, are there ways that they're trying to rein in those types of costs to really get affordable housing off the ground?
It's a challenge right now. Our clients are all telling us it's very difficult to get their planned apartment developments to work.
Mhm.
And there's some headwinds to it, that the increase in costs locally since the pandemic in 2020. I think it probably costs about 30% more to build the exact same thing you could build in 2020, maybe even a little bit more than that. That's a conservative estimate. And rents haven't gone up quite that much during that same period of time. So it's hard to get the deals to pencil. There have been headwinds related to permitting fees going up massively in the city of Dallas. And that's
Mhm.
permitting fees for all kinds of construction. But in particular, the housing market has burned the brunt of the majority of those fees. We've got new fees that apply to housing related to parkland fees or parkland dedications that have to happen on the property. We've got the affordable housing fee in lieu fee, and just general permit fees going up. And combine that with, at times it taking 6 months to get a building permit from when you complete your drawings. We've had some projects take 9 months or a year to work through the permitting process. There
Wow.
are a lot of headwinds to getting, new housing to start construction at this moment in time. And I think there are signs of things improving at the city, and there are signs of the costs hopefully coming down a little bit now as the supply chain has stabilized. But within the last 6 months to a year, we have noticed a significant slowdown in the new housing that's in the design phase.
Mm. And that kind of brings me to my last question before we start to round out our conversation, because a lot of what I'm hearing from you are trends with, supply chain issues, permitting issues, things of that nature that hopefully are starting to work itself out. But the future is relatively unknown, and hopefully it'll be moving in a positive direction. But what other trends are you noticing that have the potential to shape the future of affordable housing? And do you see any of those trends really as opportunities for Dallas to get ahead of this?
Yeah, well, in Dallas, it's an exciting time because there's a lot of new policy that's being looked at and considered. The Forward Dallas plan is looking at being overhauled, and so there's a lot of meetings going on around the city right now, looking at that new land use policy. The Forward Dallas plan updates won't change the zoning rules, but they will change the filter through which City of Dallas planning staff look at zoning change requests, and whether staff will recommend the support of a project or recommend a denial of a project comes through the filter of what the Forward Dallas plan recommends. And so I know your viewers are likely, many of them are likely already aware of that, but there's an important opportunity to get engaged in helping shape the thinking in that next version of the Forward Dallas plan right now. And as zoning changes are happening in your community, you have a huge voice in them if you'll show up to the City of Dallas Plan Commission meetings or show up to a city council meeting and speak in support of a housing project in your community that will increase housing affordability, housing attainability. It really moves the needle. There are a lot of people that come to Plan Commission and City Council meetings to speak against housing projects, and very few that come to speak for them. And so I think there's a growing silent majority of people that really want to see more housing created in Dallas, but they aren't able to come to these meetings that happen in the middle of the afternoon at City Hall. And I was at a Plan Commission meeting last night where our case was finally voted on at 9:55 p.m. And the Plan Commission hearing started at 12:30, but the briefing started at 9. So for those plan commissioners, it's an incredibly long day, and it's an unpaid position. They're volunteers making recommendations related to land use policy in our city. And how the citizens around the proposed zoning change feel about it is one of the major factors that they take into consideration as they're thinking about allowing more density and more housing to be created in specific sites in our city. It's great that there's a group like yours that's out there advocating for housing, and for your group to be engaged and pay attention to the zoning changes that are coming that it would make sense for you to potentially engage in and speak in support of is something that we need in Dallas. We need more people advocating for housing.
Well, thanks, Evan. I can't think of a better way to end our conversation. So with that, I just wanted to, again, thank you for sharing your unique perspectives on design, development, and zoning, and why affordable housing is an important issue to you. I don't know if you were up that late for the meeting, but if you were, doubly extra, many additional thanks for still making it this morning,
You bet.
as well as being a member of the Dallas Housing Coalition.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, likewise. I learn something every time. Not just something, many things every time I'm able to be a part of these conversations.
Right.
So with that, before we sign off today, I just want to remind everyone that you can follow Dallas Housing Coalition on all its socials for updates on how to get involved in the work of the coalition, as well as to stay connected with our next episode and all future episodes of the Housing for All webinar series. You can also visit the Dallas Housing Coalition webpage at dallashousingcoalition.com to learn more about the member organizations like GFF. And if you're not already a formal member, you can do that on the website. And don't forget, voting on the Dallas Capital Bond Program ends tomorrow, Saturday, May 4th. Thank you to all our viewers for coming back and being with us for another episode of Housing for All, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone.